Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin, and on today's episode, we are going to be talking or learning about Ngrx action bundles. Should be pretty cool. We've got a repeat guest coming back to help us out on that. But let's first say hi to our panelists, then we'll say hi to our guest, and we'll dive into the content. Joining us today, we've got Alyssa. Alyssa, what's going on?
Hey, so happy to be here.
Nice. Happy to have you. Mike's with us. Mike, what's going on, Mike? You look perplexed, Mike.
I brought up the chat on YouTube so that I could have that up, and then you started talking there, and I was double hearing everything, and I was very confused.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't introduce me first. I'm trying to pause that. I don't want to be super confused, which didn't work out well at all, but I'm here. I'm ready to chat. Excited about some Ngrx action bundles, even though I don't know what they are.
Nice. Well, we're going to find out.
I did that one time and I didn't have headphones, and Justin got confused by his own voice.
It was a trip. It was a trip. I said something, and I think I said, "Hey, welcome to AngularAir," and then all of a sudden I heard myself say, "Hey, welcome to AngularAir" again, and it was like Max Headroom.
I felt so bad. I'm sorry, Justin.
It's quite all right, Bonnie. It's quite all right. How are you doing?
I'm so happy. I am not in my house. No plants. I left my house for the first time in like since forever. So I'm very excited to be in the city.
Did you tell your plants goodbye? Did they know you're gone? I mean, I'm concerned about your plants.
I'm more concerned about the cats, but I think it's going to be fine. But I was going to go and explore the city and have some fun tonight, but I could not miss this awesome guest.
All right.
So I'm going to do that.
Do you not have travel plants?
Travel plants?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Of course.
Not pants, plants.
That's not a thing, Mike.
Yes, it is.
You need a travel fern, you know?
The next
it's like
time,
sits next to you on the train.
Again. The next time I see you, Mike, I'm going to come up to you and immediately say, "Where the hell's your travel plans?"
There we go.
And he will whip out a fern from his backpack and be like, "Where's yours?"
That would be so great. I would be so impressed with you if you did that, Mike.
Noted.
That'd be interesting. All right, for the future.
Yeah.
Our guest Iliya is joining us once again. Hey, how's it going?
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here again after so long.
Yeah, it's been a while, but we're super excited to have you back. Looking forward to it. Hey, do you want to fill our viewers in a little bit about yourself who maybe didn't see our previous episode?
Yeah, sure. So hi, my name is Iliya, and I'm on GD. So I really love Angular. I've been working with Angular since a long time. And I have a small company out here in Sofia, Bulgaria. And we pretty much develop web applications. We do Angular, we do React, everything that is JavaScript related. But of course, we prefer and we love Angular more. And other than that, I organize some meetups here. I mean, pre-COVID, of course. I still haven't organized anything, sadly. And I also do public and private courses and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that's all about me, I guess.
Super busy, as always, right?
Yeah, and it's Friday and I'm tired, but still I'm super excited to be here and show you something that maybe someone will find interesting, hopefully.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. So what are we diving into today?
So what should I say? Like, because we develop a lot of applications, I always try to optimize our, let's say, time that we code, and so we can make things easier and more simple. And pretty much I, from time to time, develop these kind of libraries that help us while we are developing our Angular applications. And today I'm pretty much going to be showing the one library that I created a few months ago, just because they released a new version of TypeScript, and it actually allowed me to create this thing that helps us a lot when we're creating actions and using them in our application. So this is what I'll be showing today. And whenever you say, I can share my screen and we can start.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so let me share my screen. So first, I will go through really quickly through our application. So I don't think that I'll be doing a lot of live coding or any live coding today, just because it's Friday and yeah, it's been a long day. But just before the event here, I sat down and created this small demo that I'm going to show you guys. So it's a very simple Angular application, and what it does is we have a home page, and we can load users, and we can show them, and we can also reload them. So yeah, let's maybe quickly go through the code so we can see what we currently have. Of course, hopefully the viewers are going to be familiar with Ngrx. So this is something that's used in Angular world to manage our state, but actually it's much more than Redux. It gives us superpowers, and this is just because it uses RxJS, and I really love RxJS, and all of our applications are all about RxJS, so they're really, really reactive. And yeah, I think I won't be going so much into details, but of course, let me just say what modules we're going to be using for this demo for the from the Ngrx library. So what I'm going to be using, let me just go to the package.json. I'm going to use Ngrx Effects. Pretty much this is the place where we extract our effects. And if you know functional programming, these are the so-called side effects, the mysterious things that can happen in our applications, right? So we extract them to these services that we use inside the app. And whenever we are doing, for example, API calls, this is where our logic sits. And yeah, we'll view that a little bit later. I'm also going to use, of course, the Ngrx Store, the Ngrx Store DevTools. So the Ngrx Store is pretty much the implementation of Redux for the Angular world, or let's say for Ngrx. And the DevTools is just something that allows us to use the React developer tools, so we can follow what actions were dispatched. And this is all that I'll be using. Now, what I've set up here is this folder. In all of our applications, we actually have this folder that is called store, and we put it with a plus sign in front, so it sits above every other folder in the current folder. And for each individual model, we also have this store folder. Anyways, inside the store folder, usually we separate our things into actions, effects. We use something that it's called models, but this is something that I'll talk a little bit later about. And we also have the reducers and selectors. So in the Ngrx world or the Redux world, you know that everything is dispatched through actions. And whenever we start something, like for example, whenever we start developing a module, for example, as we have here, the let's say user module that has a user list, we start by creating we start by creating all the individual actions that we're going to have. And here, as you see, I'm doing it the pretty much normal way for Ngrx. I'm using the create action function, and I'm just creating all these actions. But yeah, also, after that, maybe we go to the reducer. So in this module, actually, I put all the reducers in one file, so it's easier to follow. Actually, I wanted to have a little bit maybe bigger demo than this, but sadly, I didn't get much time. So it's going to be only one reducer that we're going to be looking at, and this is the user list reducer. So what is the reducer? Well, this is just a function that handles certain actions and modifies the state of our application. And here we say that whenever, for example, we have the load user success, so whenever we successfully loaded the users from our service, we just put them in the state, and maybe we can get them from there and show them to the users inside the components, right? So how do we get this state? Well, we use the selectors. So here are the selectors for our state, and yeah, this is the one thing that we use inside our component to get this piece of data and just present it to the user. Okay, so the effects, as I said, these are the mysterious parts of our applications. Pretty much the parts where things might not always end up as we, I don't know, expect. For example, the server can be down and we can get an error. Or for example, maybe the query that we sent is not how it should be and we can get another error. So yeah, this is why it's called effects, because here's the place where we extract pretty much all these strange things that can happen. And for loading the users, we create this effect. And yeah, we pretty much call this user service. And there are a few things that happen here. So hopefully you're also familiar with Ngrx.js, because I'm going to be using certain operators like take until. So what take until does is it says that whenever we create a stream, if this observable here that we provide emits, we pretty much destroy the stream. And why would we want to do this? Well, for example, let's say that we want to load the user, so we go to the user list page, but after that the user navigated somewhere else. Well, we want to say that we don't need this request anymore, so we want to cancel this thing. So this is what we're actually doing here. We're just saying that we want to load the users until, for example, the person that is using our application just navigates away. So if he stays on the same page, what we do, whenever the users are loaded, we say, okay, we have successfully loaded the users, so we put them in our state, or we have an error and we put this error maybe somewhere inside our state. And hopefully, yeah, this is known to you guys. And this is Ngrx, like simple, right? Okay, now, where are the issues? And actually, let's see how we use all these functions together. What are the so-called models? Sorry. Well, usually in our applications, because they're pretty big, we use this. We use the facade pattern, and we use for each individual part of the store, we create this model. So this model is pretty much a service that acts like, let's say, a proxy between the components. So the components are going to be dispatching actions and stuff, right? But they're going to be dispatching those actions and using certain data from the state through this model. And it's very useful whenever we want to extract common functionalities for certain part of our state, and also to make certain derivatives whenever we are selecting certain things from the store and we use, for example, Ngrx.js or something like that. So it's very, I would say it's very useful, especially for larger applications, because you can reuse those models in the tree below, like if it's a very big application. So yeah, this is everything. And inside our user list, what we do is pretty much insert, like we inject the user list model and we start using certain things from this model. We dispatch the load users whenever the component is created. We also have this reload users action, or let's say method on the component. So whenever we click this button here, it pretty much reloads the users. Well, what we also do is inside this model, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but I'm actually importing the actions stream that comes from Ngrx Effects. So this is something that I've been doing for a lot of years, actually, and I haven't seen, I think, more like people do it. At least I haven't, maybe they do it. But what I do is sometimes I don't want to maintain certain state inside the Ngrx store. What do I mean by state? Well, for example, if I'm loading the users, I don't want to have like a Boolean that reflects if I'm loading or not loading, or if I'm in an error state or not, I'm not in an error state and stuff like that. So what we do in our applications is we actually listen for certain actions. So if the action comes, we know that we are in this state, and if another action comes, we know that we are in the other state. So this is why we actually use what we usually use inside the effects, just to create those Ngrx.js streams that listen for particular actions. And what I can do here is say that I have this loading Ngrx.js stream, and I just say that whenever the load users action is dispatched, I'm pretty much going to map it to true because we're loading. And if we have success or failure, I'm going to map it to false. So this is why whenever we go to the application, let me maybe just throttle this so we can see, and we say reload users, we can see this beautiful loader that appears, and we can present to the users that something is happening. So yeah, this is pretty much what we have. Any questions, guys? Or everything's clear?
I like the idea of the separation there of having the actual state of the actual data state separated from the UI state. So it's kind of nice to see that separation, that what's being stored in the Ngrx store is only the data and not necessarily component-based UI state.
Exactly. So in Ngrx, we always store the data that is provided from the backend. And for certain state, for example, for certain components, what we do is we maintain it in the query parameters of the application or inside the root parameters. So it can be persistent, right? So we don't have a lot of cases where we actually keep component state inside the Ngrx store.
So let me ask one quick question. Mm-hmm. So there on the component on line 13, you're defining the observable where you're merging all of these values to determine whether or not it's something is loading. Have you considered or what the reasoning might be to put this inside the component and not exposing that particular observable from the model and encapsulating that logic there?
So yes, this can be done. To be honest, I just put it here. I'm not sure why I put it here. Just randomly, I put it there. But usually, whenever we want to present some loaders to the users, we actually don't use this kind of functionality in our applications. We have something totally different. We actually load data through directives, and these directives, they maintain their own state and they have their own loaders. So yeah, this is something that I just did for the demo. We don't do this usually in our applications. But okay. Good question. I just put it there randomly.
No problem. I was just curious.
Yeah. That point about the, thinking about the stuff that goes into state, right? And we talk about the component needing to understand we're loading or not. And that's not, do we really want that flag floating into state? I think a lot of people, it ends up, there's always this talk about single source of truth, right? Yeah. And then it's immediate to jump in. And does that mean that everything goes into the store, right? And it's like, no, that's not necessarily what that means, right? So we need to think about where's the appropriate place to store this information. Like you talk about, we load data from the back end. It's a great, and Mike, you brought this up on a previous episode where we can think about the Ngrx store as being like a database, right, for our front end. Yeah. And so we query some data, we get it in there, we provide an easy way to select that out of it and work with it, right? And then from there, you may have stuff that's like transactional state where somebody fills out a form and you want to collect that. So now that's something that you want to store there. But these things like, are we in the process of loading or are we in the process of doing some work? Like that's not there. And I have a sneaky suspicion that we're going to get to more of that in here. So looking forward to it. The other thing I wanted to really point out really quick is like, this is the cool thing that excites me about RxJS, right? Is that you just showed all this stuff and it's all kind of like, because we have this tool belt of RxJS that you can do all these different things. Like the fact that you brought in the action stream and are working against that, but with RxJS to compose together what you want. There's so many different puzzles that we can solve and ways that we can go about tackling things by having that power of composing observables together, which is cool.
Yeah, it's just so powerful. And this is something that, for example, in React, you can also have, but in React world, they don't use so much RxJS, sadly. And just super powerful. RxJS is super powerful, Ngrx is super powerful. And yeah, probably because from time to time, I invite people and I actually show them our code in our applications and they're mind blown how much RxJS and what is happening inside because everything is so reactive. Like Angular is much more reactive than React if you use RxJS, right? So
I I always find it really fun to when I start working on some observable stream, and I'll start it and it'll be kind of complex, and then I just whittle it down, and it's always exciting for me to try and solve like how can I do that in the most minimal form? Figure out the operators and the combos and the things to really make that streamline. And I don't know, it's just a fun process to go through that I find.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned keeping the state of forms inside the NGRX, and this is something that I don't like doing actually, because, for example, I imagine NGRX, the store, as something that is keeping the data closer to me, like the data from the database closer to me, and inside the form we actually have something that it's not inside our database. This is like some external state until, for example, the user saves this data on the server, then it's okay to enter the NGRX store. This is how usually we do things. So we really keep only the data that we have inside the database, or just the part of the data, of course, because usually we have pagination and stuff like that.
And that's kind of what I talk about when I say transactional state. And so you imagine you have a form that you're asking a user to fill out, and then you're going to take them like a wizard to step 2, step 3. So that first step, you have to collect the fields that they entered, but you need to keep that around so that you go to the next step, right? So at some point, you want to capture that inside of your application state somewhere, because you no longer have the form on the screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
By the way, can you see me, guys? Because my browser just froze.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you're frozen.
That's super strange.
Your video's frozen, but we can hear you.
I think my computer froze, actually. This is ridiculous. I'm not sure.
It was like, cannot run all operators.
Well, I'm not sure, like, Justin, what is the procedure in these situations?
Are you able to, can you stop sharing your screen?
Well, I actually can't do anything on my Mac, which is super strange. So I think that I'll have to restart it, sadly.
Okay. We can chat while you do that. So if you want to go ahead and drop off and join back in.
Yeah, I'll quickly restart it, and you can play some commercials.
Okay, perfect.
I think there's a really good question by Kate that we should have Justin answer.
Okay, go ahead. Iliya, yep, there we go. As soon as he gets back, we'll come back. Okay. So now I'm fielding a question. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, can you plop it up on the screen? It's Kate's question.
Let's do that. Show. Here we go. Okay, so what if I want the user to come? That's fine. I mean, I don't have a commercial to play, so let's do this. What if I want the user to come back to the form and some data is filled out from the previous session? Put it in local storage and then in the store? Yeah, so I think that's kind of like a state hydration question, right? So if we're talking about, when we run our Angular app, we're running in a SPA, single page application. And once the app is there in the browser, then it's all doing its thing. So we have, persistent state throughout that, whatever, in our code. But if the user reloads the browser, right, or leaves the page and comes back to the page, now we reinitialize our app. So, at that point, if that's in the factor, then you have to think about how do I persist that? And for me, I've used local storage before. I think it's great. It's a way that, like, on browser unload, you could, stash all your state, your transactional state into local storage, and then on start of your app, look to local storage, see if you have it, use that to rehydrate, and you would just read from local storage and then dispatch an action, NGRX action, that then gets it back into the store. So that's worked out really well for me. I've tried that before in terms of that.
And then you also need to make the determination of whether or not it makes sense to stash that information into local storage. So user entered data from a form or a wizard makes perfect sense because that's user entered data and it still should be relevant the next time they come back. However, in the case of the app that Iliya was showing with loading the users, that data may get stale and may have changed or over time. And you may not want to show or persist data that may get stale.
So you're saying like a good way of, like an easy way of spotting stale data, like versus data that's good for something like local storage is like if it's user inputted, put it, created.
That's one way to think about it.
Hello again.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh,
We were just answering a question while you were gone.
yeah, sure.
I think it went pretty well. We haven't heard yet from chat if Kate was happy with the answer or not, but
Watch,
So,
she's gonna be
all right.
like, "No, that's wrong,
I
Justin."
know. Well, if it is, go for it, please do. I would like to, yeah, for sure.
Kate's
Awesome,
over there in
okay.
the chat going, "I want my money back."
I know. Right? How do I return AngularAir? All right, we'll just pick up right where we left off.
Yay!
Yeah.
I feel like I need
so-
to just point out, Kate is really sweet, and I'm obviously just kidding, you guys. I just want to point that out for anybody that doesn't know Kate.
All right, so is everything working, Iliya? Like it's all
Yeah, everything's working
functioning?
for now. Hopefully,
Okay.
for the next 30 minutes, I won't have any issues. If I do, I'm going to contact the Apple support.
Perfect.
But actually, it might be my fault because I never shut down my Mac, so I always close it and just continue the next day. Anyways, so yeah, this is pretty much. I'm not sure why I closed the ng destroy, but here on the ng destroy, we have something else that is happening. Let me just quickly go through it as well. So here we are actually saying that if we want to get the it's loading state, the current is loading state, and we say that if it's loading, we would like to cancel the requests. This is because we actually don't need anymore this data, and we don't want to just do unnecessary operations. And other than that, we just clear the store, because every time we actually go inside a view that has state, if we leave this view, I always clean up the store, because I don't want to have any leftovers that might affect future maybe enterings of the same component. So this is what is happening here. And we actually can see that. So let me just open the DevTools again, and let's go here and just put a throttle. So we can see that whenever we load the users, if we leave the tab, this request gets canceled and no unnecessary operations are made. This is just because we have this thing inside the ng on destroy. So now let's focus on the problems for this architecture that we currently have. So the first problem is whenever we have a lot of things that we would like to load, you can see how many actions we need to create. So this is a lot of boilerplates that we found, because we really have really big applications that we work on. And this was one of the most annoying parts for me, to be able, because I have to copy and paste, rename and stuff like that, all these actions, because they're pretty similar. So whenever we're actually loading something from a server, from an API, we have the load action, we have the load success action, we also have the load failure action, and we'll also have the cancel action, and we also have the clear action, right? So what is the first thing that comes to mind? Well, because we're good developers, we would like to extract this functionality into a factory function, right? Okay, so this is one of the things that this library that I'm going to show you will help you, because we have different factories that create those actions. But of course, then we hit another problem. So the first problem with factory functions, and especially with creating this kind of functions in Angular, is TypeScript. So whenever we are creating factory functions, we would like to have types, so we can actually know what our payload is, actually the type of the payload, and the whole structure of the data that is coming inside this action. But of course, we can solve this. The next problem is the models, because, for example, as you see here, if we have a lot of things that we would like to be monitoring, for example, the load users, we also have to pretty much do this for every single action. And the same thing, whenever we would like to dispatch something, we have to do this for every single action. And can you imagine, like, if we didn't do this inside a model, if we had, like, for example, 10 components that had to load users and do some stuff with users, this would be a lot of dispatching, right? So this was the first idea of the models, to be able to extract this functionality and just reuse it across the individual components. And the next thing, of course, is creating some kind of a, maybe it's not a factory function, but some kind of a service that we can just provide all these actions and it can connect them to the current instance somehow. And yet again, we hit another problem, which is TypeScript, because it's very easy to do this if we are using JavaScript, right? I mean, we can just do some kind of an iteration, we can connect it, but then we lose the types. And this is why I actually didn't have the chance to develop this small library a little bit earlier, just because TypeScript did not allow this kind of stuff. And I think from TypeScript 4.1 or something like that, or 2, or maybe 3, I'm not sure, it is possible. Actually, I'm not sure what is the latest version of TypeScript, but please don't blame me. Okay. So let's see how we can actually resolve these problems. I'm quickly going to go to this branch called action bundles. And let's review our actions. Not sure that this is the correct thing that we should be looking at. Oh yeah, sorry, this is the correct thing. So in this new architecture, whenever we're using these action bundles, we actually won't have this file called actions, but we have the so-called thing bundles. And you can see, like, just this thing here equals a few lines, right? So what I do here is I get this factory function, excuse me, called create async bundle with clear, and this generates me a bunch of actions. So what actions we actually get? Well, these are the loads. Let me just, yeah, well, pretty much we have the load users action, the load user success action, the load user failure action, the cancel, and the clear, right? So we actually use this, let's say, factory functions to create different types of bundles that we can use inside our application. And the next thing that we had a problem with, this is the model, right? So let's see how the model looks. Well, it's pretty much this. So this is our model. And what is different here? Well, we connect those bundles that we exported here into this thing that is called actions. For example, here, if I come to the constructor and I can do this.actions, and here I can see all the values that are generated from this connect service. For example, if I do dispatch, this will actually dispatch one of those actions that I have here. But what if, for example, I come and I create another bundle? Let's say that I would like to create a bundle called maybe load user or something. Let's say load user bundle. And let's say that we actually are going to get maybe an ID with number, of course, and then we're going to get a user. Never put any, because this is a demo, so this is why I'm putting any, but we don't use any anywhere. So yeah, so if I do this and I put this one here, you can actually see that we quickly have all those actions connected and we can start using them. So all this copying and pasting and all this boilerplate and just connecting things and stuff, it's gone, right? And for me, this is super powerful because I can focus on more serious problems than just copying and pasting code everywhere inside my application. And one other thing that was actually pretty annoying was the whole thing of selecting all the individual selectors from our state, all the individual parts for the current store. Well, this is why I actually created this connect selectors thing that pretty much just gets this object with all the selectors that we have exported, and again, just uses the select function of the store and connects them to this selectors variable, or you can create, you can rename it whatever you want, of course. But yeah, this is this is how our store looks. So let's see how it's actually used inside the component. Well, it's pretty similar. As you see, we actually just import our model and we say that we would like to listen for certain actions and map them to true or false, or we would like to, for example, get something from the store and just put it to this variable, or we would like to be dispatching certain actions and yeah, whatever we would like. And the beautiful thing is that we actually have TypeScript, right? So if I say load user, it will tell me you have to provide an ID here, and I say I would like to load the first user, right? And then if I do this, I can do something like user list model dot actions dot listen. I would like to listen for the load user success maybe action, and maybe I can just subscribe and maybe console.log this result. So if I do this, probably somewhere here, if I've written things correctly, maybe just remove the throttling. Maybe somewhere in the console, we are actually going to see this user, but what? The load user success, sorry. Yeah. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if I'm not listening for this action inside the effects. So if I want to load one user, I'll have to do this as well. But let me just quickly write it. So it will be load user. Here I'm going to be listening for the load user. I'm going to be using this load user. I'm going to get from the payload of the action the ID. I'll give this ID to the service. Here I'm going to be listening for the load user cancel, like this. Then we're going to use load user success. And here, load user failure. Just fix this. And yeah, it should work. And yeah, here's the user.
Nice, nice. You said you weren't going to do any live coding, but here we are live coding. I like it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't.
I'm more than happy to see you live code. That's great. That's awesome.
So yeah, this is pretty much. It's actually pretty simple. It is pretty simple if you look at the code. Actually, maybe don't look at the code because I wrote it so I can just test it out. It can be written much better. But the most difficult part, of course, it's TypeScript. And just to maintain those types, it was really painful. And like if RxJS is something that blows your mind, you should check the TypeScript compiler. Like this is something unbelievable. Like sometimes I just sit down and I look at it and I'm like, man, I'm not sure what is happening here. And I had really painful headaches from TypeScript, really. But after a while, you get used to it. And this is something that is super powerful. I mean, I don't know. I love TypeScript, really. It's just amazing. So cool. yeah, this is pretty much it, guys. I mean, it's not something complex, and it's really something that saves us a lot of time. And we started using it. We have actually 2 applications now that we're developing, and we are using it. And yeah, it's really nice. There is only one downside to this, and this is, for example, if I would like to maybe go to the creator of this action, I cannot do a command like click or something, and this won't throw me here, for example, or something like that. But again, I think I can live with this because, yeah, I think the other thing of copying and pasting is much more, it takes much more time than just going to the bundles file or whatever. Plus, we can always use the command P and, yeah, search for the file and go there.
So are we able to kind of...
The chat, sorry, they're cracking me up.
All right. So you talk about TypeScript and being able to solve that. So what I see here on the screen, right, is that you're calling this factory function and we're calling it load users with that magic string there. But under the hood, we're getting like strong type named, you know, dot notation for that has load users in it. Is that something that you can show kind of how you're able to pull that off?
Whew, yep. I'm not sure if you I'm not sure if you would like to see it, but yeah. So this is the library, of course. Oops. Let me just So this is the library. It's open source. Everybody can. This is what I'm actually hoping for. When I come to your show, Justin, I'm hoping for people to get excited and maybe join and help me out with maybe one of my projects. I mean, I have a few. Some of them are. Or yeah, they're not finished, I guess, because I cannot do so. I just have 24 hours, and I have those 2 hands, so I cannot. I cannot do much. So yeah, I try, and whenever something breaks, I try to fix it. But yeah, hopefully someone will get interested and they can join. But yeah, let's dive into the library itself then. So let's see what we are searching for. Is this create async bundle with clear, right? Let's search for it, and let's see where we actually are using it. So yeah, this is it right here, and yeah, we have. Let me just create async bundle. Yeah, as you see, a lot of things is happening here. These are all this is all the boilerplate that usually we have to write in order to create all those actions. But yeah, there are some pretty interesting things. For example, here, make action key with suffix. This is something that some people might find it interesting. For example, as you see here, what we're doing is we are getting some kind of an action name. We're getting some kind of a suffix. And what we are doing is we are pretty much joining those two things together. And in order for this to like have its own type, right? For example, to have load users or load user success or load users failure and stuff like that. So to be typed, what we need to do is pretty much use this strange thing where this is not JavaScript, right? This is TypeScript. And in TypeScript, we are saying that we would like to get this generic that is a string, and also this other generic n that is a string as well. And what we would like this function to return is this combination of those two generics that are string, right? So this is something very interesting. And even the one below it is even more interesting because, for example, here I'm capitalizing the first letter of this name, right? So in order to have load users and for success to be with a capital S, right? So how do we do this with TypeScript? Well, we use this capitalize type that gets a generic, and yeah, everybody can just see it here. So it's just pretty much, yeah, this thing. Yeah, so what else?
That's exactly what I wanted to see. Like,
okay.
That's what's really cool about it, right? Is that like you're talking about you built a solution for things that we do on an everyday basis in our code, right? And so how can you make that easier? And you talked about the power of TypeScript and how we can leverage that to really make things a lot lower effort for us to start reusing our code or reproducing our code. And that's, seeing stuff like this is an example of how we can craft our own solutions to do those sort of things. So when you're faced with something like that, where you're like, I want to dynamically create these properties with whatever name you give me at the time that you write that code, how can I pull that off with TypeScript? This is super fascinating to see that we have this ability to do our own typing and make all this stuff happen. It's cool. I love it.
It can, but it will cost you time.
This is true.
Just to understand it, right? But it's super interesting. It's super interesting. Even like this, for example, the connect selectors or the connect bundles. The connect bundles is a little bit easier, I guess. But for example, here with the selectors, we have this thing, right, which is super interesting. For example, this infer keyword in TypeScript is super interesting as well. That allows us to kind of infer the type of some thing that is like entering this function or whatever, right? So yeah, really interesting. For example, as you see here, we have another thing here that we're getting all the keys of this object that we're providing here, and we are saying that these keys are a string, and then we say that we would like to present those keys as the name of the key, and we put this $mark at the back to reflect that this is an Ngrx string, right? And yeah, it's just go and check out the code. I mean, it's really fun.
It's awesome. I mean, the cool thing is that you got to do all this work, right, to build this tooling. But on the flip side, as we saw, we didn't have to define any types or say we just got all the inference we just use the code, right? And it flows through, and TypeScript knows what's coming through that, like you showed, it knows that this method takes this object that looks like this. From a consuming standpoint, we didn't have to do any bunch of extra stuff. So
Yeah,
all the work is
exactly.
done at that lower level to create essentially the tooling and the reproducible code. Yeah,
For
I
example,
get geeked
here,
out on it too. It's like,
for example, here we have to be a little bit careful, because if we put spaces, this is actually going to be the action name, and it's going to be a little bit hard to get it. We have to use the square brackets in order to call the method and stuff. But other than that, if we keep it like camel case, just like it is, we can just do load cool users, and here we have to go and rename it to load cool users, right? So yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but I'd imagine that could be solved at that lower level as well, too, right? Like you could probably find a way inside of your factory function to say, like, I'll gracefully handle that. If a user puts in the space or whatever under the hood, I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can totally do that. Yeah, actually.
Or I wonder if you could make the typing.
This is your next pull request.
I know. Now I'm involved, right? I wonder if we could even make the typing for that factory function to declare that like that string has to look like a certain way, right? So like when they go to use it, if they put a space in there, could you at development time tell them, oh no,
this is interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if we have this ability in TypeScript yet to just maybe put a regular expression and say, hey, this string should look like this regular expression or something. But one day, probably one day. If we don't have it now, it will be here in the next few months. I mean, the people from Microsoft, they're working super hard and always putting new functionality in TypeScript is just amazing. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Just as much as I love RxJS and Ngrx and everything. So yeah.
And I'm also thinking it want to be a whole lot more effort to add an is loading listener as well, with all the logic that you have there of the different dispatched actions, to have that, to throw that inside as a listener, an available listener to the bundle.
I think we can. I think I can do that as well.
Because you know what the different cases are.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I'm just I just have to see how we are actually going to be using those loaders. But you are totally correct about that. Yeah. Good. Good comment. Really.
Hey, tell Mike he's expected to have a PR now too.
Yeah. Oh no, I already created the issue and assigned it to you, Justin.
All right.
You guys already like made one pull request to one of my libraries, the Query Param store, and I was super happy actually to just see it. And thanks again.
Yeah.
Stephen had a question earlier that wanted to know, has Iliya spoken to the Ngrx team about this library and integrating it into the project maybe tomorrow? Could be good. I mean, I added that part, but just curious.
I actually haven't spoken to anyone, and I to be honest, I didn't have any time to just sit down and do presentation slated, just because it's been such a crazy year, and it was kind of hard for my business as well. But now things are getting much better, and I want to become more active. Just being a GDE, I should be more active, and I was like, okay, I'll just text Justin and I'll just schedule this date. It's really, everything is just, I wanted to test it more and just to maybe see, maybe get some feedback before I do anything else. But I can do that. And one other interesting thing actually is a few maybe weeks ago, or maybe 1 month ago, I was actually wondering if there is something pretty similar to what I've developed in React, because probably they have the same issue, right? And I actually found this library that pretty much does almost the same thing. It only generates those bundles. They're not called bundles here, but for people who are writing React, they can check it out. It's called type safe actions, and it's super similar. I was actually really surprised to see it, but it's a little bit Yeah, it's a little bit different. It generates those very objects, and from those objects you can call the different actions. But yeah, it's pretty interesting as well, and pretty similar. The only part that was missing from it was the connection part. And what I did is I pretty much copied the connection part from my library. I put it there, and yeah, I created the connection part as well. So yeah, it was nice.
As I think about this conceptually of the idea of building the bundle, when I think about generalizing NGRX for a specific loading pattern, the first thing that comes to mind is NGRX data. Is that something that you've looked into? I only know of NGRX data at the surface level, that as you're working with basically a REST entity type, that it will essentially put all the logic for loading, saving, updating, deleting, all those things for a given entity. Whereas this is a partial of that it's going to give you all of the actions and listeners associated with loading an entity or multiple entities.
Yeah, so actually, not to disappoint anyone, but I've looked into NGRX data, but I somehow didn't find the API. I don't know. For me, it's a little bit strange, and I have no experience, sadly, with NGRX data.
Okay.
So I cannot, I cannot comment on that.
Yeah, I think it has a specific use case that you have to be using REST, and it has to everything has to go through the same endpoint for all of the all the entities, all the using the different HTTP actions, get, post, put, and delete.
Yeah,
I believe. Again, I haven't worked with it myself, but that's my understanding at least.
So yeah, probably NGRX data is the part that from NGRX, the whole library. This is something that I'm not using just because I like to have more control over everything that is happening, and
that's very cool.
Usually like we do complex applications. I mean, there's some ridiculous stuff happening in our effects.
so here's something I like to do. Justin, I'm sure you've used it. What are your thoughts?
On what you like to do? Or you can tell me, or are you talking about NGRX data?
NGRX data.
He likes to throw the ball to your court is what he was trying to.
So
I think NGRX data is really good. The only thing that thing that you have to be concerned about with NGRX data is it's more convenient because it's auto-generating that stuff for you, so you don't have to write all that stuff. But it's still putting more stuff in your client bundle, so you really don't want it to get too carried. Don't think that you can just do whatever you want to, because you still want to be careful about not having too much going on.
Yeah,
that's my 2 cents.
So I'll ask it in a better way. Justin, do you have any experience with NGRX data?
I've played with it before, but not anything recently and not anything too in-depth.
Okay. I was trying to throw you under the bus, and then I decided.
That's fine.
Then Justin, you're supposed to say, Mike, why do you ask?
Mike, why do you ask? Should I have? What?
Because you are smarter than me, my friend.
All right, let me get us back on topic here. What one of the things I see with this thing is a potential extension for this, action bundles. One of the things that comes up a lot that I encounter with the concept of effects is thinking about like when I need to do some logic, right? There maybe is a series of things I need to do. Like in your case, you're loading the users. Maybe I need to load the users and then get some additional data. And like all of that is part of my business logic requirement to happen. And if they're all on their own little effects, then really at any point, somebody could dispatch an action and do part of that process, right? But how do I ensure that all of that process happens in a chunk for sure, right? Because those are my business rules. And so something like these action bundles that you have for, the loading and things, it could be extended to be something where I say, I'm going to use this action bundle, set it up in this way that all of these requirements of this, workflow has to happen. And then now the way people use it is call the one method under the hood. It ensures all the, you can still have your effects and everything if you want, but it ensures they all get run in the right sequence, that sort of thing. I mean, you still have the potential, like once it's in an effect and in an action, if it's exposed somewhere, somebody could still dispatch the middle action and disrupt it, right? But it still starts along that road of maybe solving that challenge.
Yeah, definitely. But again, I just want to say that it's not something like super hard to write. I mean, I don't feel like I've written Angular or something. It's just
well, you say that, but we saw that TypeScript that you manipulated to solve those problems, and that's, you know, there's a lot of work in there, like you said, you know. So yeah, I guess conceptually of what you're building, yes, it's kind of, you know, there, the mental model's there, but to pull it off the way that you did, there's a lot of stuff that would involve with it for sure.
Yeah, it's just I had to just dig into TypeScript a little bit more. Actually, the thing is that we just started a new project back then, and I was like, I'm so sick of this writing, and yeah, I just sat down and created it for a few days. But yeah, it's been pretty useful, and that's why I just wanted to share it. So.
Awesome.
And of course, to see you guys, because I haven't seen you for so long.
Heck yeah, for sure. Well, this has been super awesome. I love it. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to dig in more on it, and I can certainly see plenty of uses for it. Hopefully our viewers as well.
Yeah,
sure.
Hopefully. So I'll be happy, like, for any feedback, comments, pull requests, whatever. Like, yeah.
Can we share a link to the repo? Can you give that to Justin?
Yeah, I will. I'll post it. I don't know, maybe.
Hey, you put it private chat, and then he can post it in
private
the
chat.
comments. Thanks.
Yep. Justin, there's an S at the end of that as well.
Oh yeah, I didn't copy it correctly. Yeah, sorry.
You missed the S. That's okay. Again, Justin is brilliant. He can type an S.
Let's give this a try. I actually couldn't find the S key for a minute there, but I Googled it, and now I found it.
You can copy and paste it from somewhere else.
I've done that before. I had to copy paste a single letter because my keyboard wasn't working. A story for
this
another
really
day.
is hitting close to home for me right now because I'm on my MacBook Pro with the awful keyboard. I feel very targeted right now.
All right, so everybody see the link down below. We don't see Bonnie. Sorry, Bonnie. Here, I'll go back. We're done sharing.
I'm back here.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. All right. Do our panelists, anybody have any picks? You want to do some picks? We haven't done picks in a minute.
I don't know, but after watching Alyssa air type like this, there's online typing courses to learn to type.
You all make fun, but my poor mother, she is still typing like this. And I'm like, Mom. So, I mean, there's people out there. I know there are.
That brings up an inappropriate joke that I know, but I'm not.
If you're able to ship code, then type however you want to type.
You type however you want. I don't have any picks. Do you, Justin?
Oh, everybody's put me on the spot today. Do I have any picks?
It's Pick on Justin Day. Did you not get the memo? It's on the calendar, Justin.
I did not.
Well,
I have too many things on my calendar.
Maybe you're not on the
missing out on it.
list for that one. My pick is our Angular Nation after party tonight. Iliya said he's going to come and join us. Is that right, Iliya? You have a little bit of time. He's going to come. So if you want to, so he has to meet his new fans. I know Stephen and Chow should be there, and so you might have a couple more questions to answer over there, or you can just say hello and collect your adoration.
Sure. Of course, I'll join. I've been willing to join for so long. Just as I said, it's just been a crazy year. So
yeah, well, we're always happy to have you.
Thank you.
Nice. All right, I do have a pick. I'm going to pick ScriptKit by John Lindquist. He's of Egghead.io fame. It's this tooling. It's to be able to have scripts that you can run locally on your machine. I think it's cross-platform as well, so Windows, Mac, I think. But basically, it's kind of a sort of super clean way to start creating your own scripts that you can run on your machine to automate a bunch of things, right? Kind of anything like opening browsers, targeting a tab, opening applications, moving things around, all the sort of things that we do on a regular basis. Actually, there's a bunch of scripts out of the box that comes with or that you can pull down that are really cool. So if you're looking to automate stuff, I definitely recommend checking out ScriptKit. So that's my pick. All right, anybody else have any picks? Are we good?
I can share my picks.
All right. Let's do it.
No, it's just this library, the type safe actions, and one other library for like if someone is writing React, they can check. I'm going to post the URLs here on the private chat. So it's called Redux Observables, and it allows us to use something similar to what we have in Ngrx Effects. So yeah, it's really cool. So these are my picks.
Nice.
If I remember correctly, doesn't Redux Observable come from Ben Lesh and Jay Phelps, two of the core members of the RxJS team? I believe so. But I'm not.
We're like, your name dropping, Mike. What was happening?
Ask Justin. He'll know.
And I feel like you're asking me. Are you asking me?
Not at all.
I was actually expecting Justin to answer, but
Oh man, it's Friday.
It's a
All right.
compliment that we think you know everything, Justin.
I appreciate it.
You really
Somebody's
do.
got to be the responsible adult in this group.
Sometimes. All right. Well, hey, Iliya, thanks again for taking your time, joining us once again, sharing your knowledge, sharing this code, creating this code. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
oh, thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and yeah, until next time.
Yes. Looking forward to next time. Whatever else you want to create, come back on. We'll talk about it.
Definitely.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Message me on Twitter if you have any questions. I guess I'll have the answer. Peace.
AMA.